What's up, everybody? I am back with a new comic book review, and next couple of comic book I'll be reviewing will be like kind of like minis because I'm just very busy right now, so I can't fully commit to a lengthy comic to review. I will get back to it eventually, but for the next at least somewhere by the time of the end of November, getting into December, I'll get back to more lengthy comic book reviews. Well, that's unless I come across like some holiday themed ones that want to, put priority. But in any case, for right now, at least for the upcoming foreseeable future, it's just going to be kind of mini comics that I'll be reviewing. But anyway, this one, since it's in the middle of October, I'll be covering Batman Full Moon. It's written by Rodney Barnes, art by Stefan Subek. And is Batman as a werewolf. And Batman has like a history in, because this is like a Black Label book, so it's kind of like an Elseworld story. Batman has like a lengthy history of Elseworlds comics where he's dealing with supernatural creatures. There's an Elseworlds story called Red Rain, where Batman got turned to a vampire. This one, he's dealing with being like a werewolf. But this doesn't end on like a sad note like Red Rain. But before I continue, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. This came out last year, in 2024. So let me know what you guys thought about this if you read it yourself. Normally I'm not a fan of this particular arc, but this art illustration, but I think personally it kind of fits in the kind of motif that we're telling about here. If this was any other kind of story, I would not have been a fan of, but I think this art works in this particular situation. I just want to say that right off the bat. So the story opens with Batman dealing with some gun smugglers when he's supposed to have been on a date with Zatanna, the Justice League member who's one of the best magicians in the DC universe. And of course her father has in DC lore was the one who taught a young Bruce Wayne escapology. So and of course this is playing around with that, at least in the early stages of Batman's career, where he's hesitant or just full on do not believe in the supernatural. He believes in like hard facts and science. But I as I say, it's like playing at it mostly because he still acknowledges it, but he just don't F with it, because it's not something he can grasp or understand, unlike Zatanna, who's part of the humanity that's considered a magi, people who are born with, like coming from like a supernatural parent, is born with like a just like a predilection. I'm butchering that name, but just very adept at utilizing magic more so than anybody else who isn't of that world and just learned later, uh, with more arduous uh, uh, schooling in the arts, rather than Zatanna, who's just find it easier because of her, genetic lineage. At the same time, in Wayne Enterprises, uh, a man known as crap, I'm blanking on the guy's name already. I just had it. Because it's based off an actual character in like Wolfman lore. Uh, Crap, I want to get it just right. Christian Talbot. He's trying to, because he is a werewolf who was, because he was part of this British Armed Forces, and one of their campaigns, he got bitten by a wolf that transferred the werewolf curse onto him, and he ended up not realizing that, and when he's back home with his wife and child, he transformed, killed them. Now he's, trying to figure out a way to get rid of this curse, which leads him to Gotham, where he went to Wayne Enterprises, since they got one of the best tools necessary. Thinking like, okay, maybe science can he can probably science this away. However, of course, everything went awry. He transformed, brutally killed all the scientists that was there, and everything pretty much like went up in smoke. So Batman and Gordon went to investigate, and Batman just quickly deduced that, okay, there's a bunch of corpses that has been ripped to shreds, like literally limb from limb. Clearly, this hasn't been done by no tool, because the parts are completely uneven. It looks like it was ripped by bare hands, or at least claws, because there's a lot of claw marks way before the fight even got to any of them. Clearly, there's some creature had done this. And I love this moment with like one of the fire chiefs who a little like miffed the fact that, look, this this is a fire, which means I gotta take point here. And there's like a back and forth with him and Jim Gordon, where it's like, well, clearly there's like a murder, so unexplained. Batman here, we gotta deal with this. So suck an egg. But then there was a sighting of a creature in a park. Gordon sends some SWAT officers to go, or some tactical team to go deal with it. They immediately get, a lot of them get butchered. Batman arrives on the scene and completely ill prepared, and he gets bitten and scratched, which effectively cursed him. And it kind of reminds me, because I did a review a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys probably read the comic of Batman versus the Predator, the first encounter, where Batman, in his first encounter with the Predator, immediately gets mollywopped because he's got his pants completely, he got pants essentially, he completely off guard because he's dealing with something he has no way of dealing with. So thankfully, Gordon and other officers start showing up at the scene, and then of course Alfred shows up in like a helicopter to whisk Batman away. So the werewolf runs off, finds, and then Talbot wakes up naked in an alley, being cared for by a young teenager and a adult, both homeless. Usually being cared for by this uh, uh, not Reverend crap, we call them like a nun, essentially, or Sister Weeks, pretty much, who's like this heavyset black woman who is very devout Christian, very apt name for this kind of situation, who decides to look after him because, like, hey, we're all God's children. He look after his own. He will never like turn a blind eye for his children in need, that type of thing. Of course, Batman just barely out of recovery but he gets right back into the field after he just got patched up by Alfred, where he's re-investigating the crime scene, where he is met up with by Dr. Langstrom, of course as Man-Bat. And he was the one he wasn't there, but he was overseeing, or was in charge of trying to cure Talbot of his lycanthropy, because considering that he's kind of like a werebat, essentially, he can sympathize, and hopefully he can try to cure him of that infliction. So he kind of teams up with Batman in order to try to solve this case and find Talbot. Here we get a bit of the backstory of Talbot and his tragic origin. And of course, they really sticking to the whole werewolf lore, where cursed people of the lycanthropy has like a pentagram on somewhere on their body. His is on his palm. Bruce eventually goes on a rescheduled date with Zatanna, and of course, lo and behold, John Constantine is there. Because he puts in his little petty little jabs because he's a little bit jealous, because he has like a thing for Zatanna. They dated before, and of course Zatanna not only dated John, she has always had like a relationship with Bruce from time to time. So it's kind of a bit of like a love triangle, and of course John often points out to Zatanna every chance he gets about the fact that these two, we're meant for each other because we're cut from the same cloth. Bruce isn't from our world. He will never understand, especially not understand you the same way I understand you. And of course, Zatanna, unlike John, does not, or at least John, unlike Zatanna, does not know that Bruce and Batman are the same person. At least not in this iteration. Usually in the mainline story, he's fully aware that Bruce and Batman are the same person. But little by little, throughout this 4-issue story, he will kind of starting to piece it together. Not fully come out and say it, but He'll probably it'll seem to you like he pretty much by the end of it all, it alludes to the fact that he kind of caught on because despite Constantine's antics, he's not an idiot. But I'm not a complete fan of how John is drawn here. Like I said, like this art typically I'm not much of a fan of. Uh, there's at least 60% of what's drawn here I care for, but the other 40% I don't care for at all. Like the depiction of Sister Weeks. I don't like really care for the depiction of Alfred in this because I don't know. This is he looks way too old. I understand Alfred should be, in his elder years, but still, not like he should be in a retirement home at the same time. You know what I mean? So Sister Weeks takes Talbot to the church so they can pray together. And Talbot, and this is the part like I did not care for because it seems kind of dumb. You know that you're cursed to be a werewolf. You know when the full moon gets up that you change. Why you are not selling yourself off immediately when that time arrives, or at least isolate yourself somewhere far away from any populated areas where people might be around, so that way the likelihood of you hurting somebody is next to none. But he changes. Sister Weeks runs because she didn't know the full scope of like what she was dealing with. But Man-Bat comes crashing through, and we got like a cool fight between a werewolf and a werebat. So that part is extremely dope. But of course, Batman comes in. He gets bitten. I'm shocked that it didn't happen. The curse didn't happen that night, but Bruce ends up getting cursed. Alfred shows up and rescues him and makes up this fabricated story that he was out in that park and he was attacked by this monster. Of course, Zatanna and John Constantine show up, helping, Langstrom and trying to figure out a way to get rid of this curse before it becomes permanent. Zatanna tries to use her mysticism to try to separate the wolf part from the man, but of course it fails. You didn't think it was going to be that freaking easy. But you would think, Zatanna or maybe Dr. Fate or something like that could have some mystical means of separating. But I guess since it's a curse, it's kind of like it's not that easy to just sever. But I don't know. You would think Zatanna, at the very least, Dr. Fate at the most, would have the capability of stopping this affliction, especially if it's not permanent yet. And then Talbot runs back to the church after reverting back to his human form. It's just like, bro, okay, hey, why would you go back knowing the full, like, you might have hurt somebody in a church. Secondly, why was I know Sister Weeks is a very devout. She's fully faithful and she wants to help her flock and all this other stuff, the wayward children, things like that. But still, oh, and then there's like a whole nother panel where Gordon talks with her, but she didn't want the cops coming in, possibly hurting Talbot. And of course, Gordon points out, bearing false witness is a sin, sister. Because you would think like Gordon would have a reputation of being like a straight and narrow kind of guy that out of all the cops could be trusted, because of course they're not in the narrows, but it's there's like I guess a neighborhood that's kind of similar where the cops is not typically trusted in this part of Gotham. But like I said, you would think like Gordon will have like a reputation where out of anybody, he's the one that often associates with Batman. He's the one that kind of straighten out the police force for the most part from their corrupted days. So it's kind of like, okay, if you see Jim Gordon, if you want to tell him anything, he's the one you go to. Like if you want to trust any cops, he's the only one he could trust. I don't know. So yeah, the split of man and beast completely fails. But despite Alfred's objections, of course, Batman still goes out because he needs to find Talbot. And considering that now he's cursed by Talbot, there's a mental link between the two. So he can easily, by supernatural means, locate Talbot. But of course, there's a full moon tonight. But this is Batman. He ain't gonna stop being Batman. Doesn't matter. And of course, this fool ends up changing. And Talbot, despite Sister Weeks and the other two homeless people chaining Talbot up in like a basement cellar or something, clearly not with strong enough chains or not enough, he breaks loose. And attacks Sister Weeks, who, look, smartly written, despite this being like a one-off character, very devout, believing, in God through and through, will, she believes, foolishly, but believes that, he will not hurt her. There's Talbot is still in there somewhere. But this is like a werewolf story. And this ain't your Twilight. This is like a weird, like a real werewolf. And going up by bestial nature, he attacks her, rips off her arm, and exits the building. And of course, Batman, and this is kind of like an awesome image, Batman immediately starts transforming into a werewolf. He bursts out of his Batmobile like the Kool-Aid Man, and it just, I love the whole look, just a big werewolf, with a torn Batman mask still on, partially on his face, and the bat garb torn but still partially on, signifying, yeah, this is Batman as a werewolf. This is very dope. Like I said, this is probably like one of my favorite images. So these two wolves meet up and they start attacking each other, clawing at each other, biting at each other, just a savage fight. Of course, Talbot decides to try to enter the fray. Sorry, not Talbot. Langstrom starts changing into Man Bat. I guess in this iteration he has more control of it, rather than being like some kind of serum he has to take or something. He tries to interfere, but where Batman attacks and rips off one of Langstrom's wings and tosses him to the side, while Gordon, Zatanna, and Constantine show up. And of course, Gordon's fully aware who Zatanna is, apparently. Gives her a chance to try to stop him. Try to stop Were Batman. They managed to incapacitate him. And then, of course, once again, Alfred comes into the fray to, gas the area and lift, and because they, Constantine and Gordon just assume Batman is in the Batcopter, whisking away this werewolf, not realizing that's Alfred. And of course, Talbot, werewolf, escapes in this whole kerfuffle. Alfred chains Batman up in a better set of chains in the Batcave until he kind of reverts back to human form and explains what had happened, trying to make sure his identity is kept under wraps throughout all this ordeal. And Zatanna informs Bruce that somehow she figures out, well, I guess maybe Bruce might have sensed it, that Talbot's not in Gotham anymore. He's going back to Romania, where the werewolf origin has originated, hoping that maybe in this place of origin there's some special means of ending this curse once and for all, because you can't find it in the States, and there's no scientific way, even the best of scientists in the US, which is, Wayne Enterprises in this case, there's no scientific means of destroying this curse, so he had to go through a mystical route. So Zatanna and Bruce decides, okay, we need to find this guy, and hopefully while there, maybe they'll also find a way to break this curse of Bruce. So they end up all going to Romania. Constantine stays back in Gotham with Langstrom, while Langstrom is going through Talbot's blood, trying to synthesize a cure. And once he manages to get one, he will rely on Constantine to mystically teleport to wherever Bruce and Zatanna are, so he can provide that. And there's this moment between Bruce and Constantine, which I thought was pretty dope, where we see that Constantine has, he has his moments of having like a real human moment, not being like a straight up D-head, where he hands Bruce some silver bullets, saying that, look, despite all the monsters I typically deal with, I have like a soft spot for people inflicted by lycanthropy, because more often than not, they're decent people. They got this curse put upon them uh, without their knowledge, or nothing was in their control, and they're doomed for this kind of lifestyle. And I understand that Z cares about you, and despite everything, you know, you didn't deserve this. Despite my jokes about you being like a rich, you know, you know, playboy dope, uh, you're still like a decent guy. So if push comes to shove and we can't find any cure before this kind of situation becomes permanent, and before you probably get a chance to do any damage on Z, you probably need to use this, because without your knowledge, your werewolf side will do some serious damage on innocent folks, and you probably don't want. You can't bring yourself to do that. You probably want to use those. They fit in any type of pistol, so just a FYI. So we see a little bit of top of history as you go to this old gypsy woman who explains something. The long and short of it is, there's nothing she can do about it. The curse is, is pretty much like sticks with you. And we see a bit of Talbot's history, dealing with this curse. He tries to end it in very different ways, but that wolf side of him cannot let him die for some reason. He always seems to, survive. You would think, okay, why don't you drown yourself? Or because he tries to leap off a building and somehow he survive. But I don't know. You know the weaknesses of a werewolf, which is silver bullets. So why don't you? I guess silver is not easy to come by, but I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like, okay, you know how to deal with a werewolf. You just cuff the head or pump yourself full of silver bullets. It's usually or stab yourself with something silver, because that's usually a good, easy way to get rid of a werewolf. Or better yet, walk in the middle of the ocean or drop yourself in the middle of the ocean and drown yourself, because werewolves can't breathe underwater. Anyway, or just take yourself on a secluded island somewhere so you can live out the rest of your life so you won't hurt anybody. I mean, that was just off the top of my head. This is moments where Constantine's messing with Langstrom. Of course, Langstrom ain't have none of his malarkey, so he's still trying to synthesize a cure. Back in Romania, Bruce meets up with Langstrom. Langstrom, after talking with the gypsy woman, decides you know what, he just resigned himself with his fate. He just it's kind of like the stages of grief, where he's finally hit acceptance and just fully embraced the wolf. And he wants Bruce to join him in that endeavor. But of course, Bruce ain't the one to give up. They ultimately end up transforming and starting to attack each other. And in that fight, this savage fight, Bat Werewolf ends up pretty much winning, but Zantana uses a spell to kind of push them away from murdering each other. Of course, these beasts set their sights on her now. but she ends up getting away while these two go at it with each other. She finds that gypsy woman and pretty much like, you know, tried to get her to help because it's like, hey, like, you know, like what's going on here? What was this? Uh, uh, death to the one that infected the other will free its victim. Of this I'm aware, but magic can only keep the beast at bay. And she hands him uh, uh, a packet or a book or something. And uh, before uh, Talbot able to kill Bruce, Z shows up, stabs the Talbot wolf in the neck, killing him, which ends up relieving the curse. Because that's another way of dealing with a werewolf curse, is to have well, usually it's the one who was cursed has to be the one to kill the one that cursed him or her. But and that cures the curse before it becomes permanent, which kind of leaves like the whole situation with Langstrom. Well, I guess it's kind of like a backup, but it kind of leaves what they had going on back in the States kind of moot. But John ends up showing out right as like the whole battle's over, and Langstrom finally dies peacefully. Now that he's just more glad that he's finally rid of this huge burden that he had to live with for such a long time. And back, after this whole ordeal, they're back in Gotham, where Bruce, using his money to straighten up the church after the werewolf fight, but also him and Alfred and Zatanna, and to a little degree John Constantine, is helping with the feeding the homeless and everything like that. And ends with Bruce making out with Zatanna. And that was Batman Full Moon. It's a fun read. It's like a fun, short Elseworld story that actually end on a happy note compared to like most others, where it's somewhat of a dour note. But I still tend to like those still, like Batman Damned, despite it left not only ambiguous but on like a sour note. It's still like a fun read. And this one, I like it. It's not like my favorite Elseworld story. It's like above average. Had a great time with it. But yeah, that was Full Moon, and I love me a werewolf story. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. It's just 4 issues, quick read, and I have another quick read. It's a Marvel one that I'll have definitely before Halloween. But drop a comment and share this with your friends and let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time for more comic book reviews. I know it's been a minute since I did one. Like I said, been very busy, but I'll have another one before the month is over. So take care, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.